Good evening and welcome back to Capitol Tonight, a statewide look at politics. I'm Tim Boyum. It is Wednesday, time for the advocates, the folks whose job it is to research topics we talk about each and every night. Joining us tonight, Donald Bryson, who heads up the Conservative Americans for Prosperity here in North Carolina, and Rob Schofield with the Progressive NC Policy Watch. Guys, good to see you as always. Welcome back.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, let's start briefly with national politics. We had the State of the Union last night. A very partisan feel to me. The president sort of sticking to his guns. The line of the night that people remember is about how I won my 2 elections, but I don't have any elections left. The Republican response basically ignoring the president. I mean, it was really on display the partisan politics that we have today.
You know, I think a lot of progressives were saying, "Where's this president been? We welcome this." You know, his poll numbers have been shooting up since November. He's back over 50% nationally, and I think a lot of it has to do with people respect a president who speaks his mind and seems to stand for something. And so even if maybe they disagree with him. And so I think Obama, I wish he'd done this 2 or 3 years ago.
Donald, is this an instance where the Republicans are going to pass what they want, the president's going to make up his mind, and they're going to do their own thing, and we are 2 years from now where we are today?
We're not going to be exactly where we are today, but there's going to be a lot of that. I think you're going to see the Republicans sort of push their agenda through, and if the president vetoes it, he's going to veto it. But I think there are some areas, some surprising areas where they can probably come together. I firmly believe that one of those areas is tax reform. The president talked about simplifying the tax code, getting rid of loopholes, which is something that conservatives are very much in line with. But conservatives also want the tax rates to be reduced at the same time to sort of simplify the tax system, make it a much fairer playing field for everyone.
And the president's for that, but I think where the big difference, of course, is taxing the people at the top. And the president has spoken forcefully on the issue of inequality and the growing gap between the rich and poor, and between the rich and the middle class, between a handful of families and everybody else. And if we're not going to take that on, then we're going to be missing an enormous.
Is there a middle on that? I mean, right? So I mean, is there a middle between that issue, or does someone have to give?
I hope so.
I know you don't feel like there's a middle, but I mean, is that a possibility?
I think there is a possibility. I mean, the issue of loopholes is so huge to begin with that, yeah, even if they try to go after them, they're never going to get them all. And so I think there's plenty of room to work in there where people can come out satisfied in there.
Interesting. All right, on the state level, next week the legislature really gets back to work. Right. We had our starting day last week. But Rob, what's your take now that we have a little chance to digest everything? What do you think the session's going to be about? We
were talking about it. I think it's going to be it's going to be a day-by-day basis. I mean, there's no real overarching theme that we can identify now, except that maybe it's governance. It's sort of keeping things in the road and not letting things get out of control. But I think the defining issue from my perspective remains Medicaid expansion. If Governor McCrory is going to push it, and if he were to somehow have success, it would be a defining issue for him. If he's going to push it and get defeated again, then I think it's a defining issue for him in 2016. So I think that, and it is clearly the issue that would make the most difference to the most people in the state that the government could affect tomorrow, and I very much hope that they'll seriously address it.
So this is one issue you guys totally agree on is the big issue of the session, I imagine, but polar opposites
right.
of where you want to go. I mean,
right.
You're really pushing the legislature to just say no.
Yeah, we're saying no to Medicaid expansion. I think Rob and I would both agree that there needs to be some Medicaid reform, and we need to figure that out. What that Medicaid reform looks like, who knows? My major concern is, we have a Medicaid program where the state is basically an extension of the national government in dealing out this program, but we're having $300 and $400 million cost overruns year after year after year, and that's something that North Carolina simply can't afford.
But they've gotten it under control in the last few years, right? Hasn't Governor McCrory been bragging about that?
I'll see it when the budget numbers come out and see if we've overrun or not.
Well, and of course the driving force for that is the rising cost of health care, which we have also gotten a little bit under control at the national level. It's not driven by we have some sort of Cadillac program. It's because we have seen rises in health care. Actually, Medicaid has been going up slower than the cost of private health care. So I really think that we could do a tremendous amount of good for hundreds of thousands of people. It's such a no-brainer. We've got Republican governors all over the country doing it and effectively expanding Medicaid to people who need it. I just think it's a no-brainer. I think it will be a disaster if the Senate stands in the way again.
And I should say, the governor has said he wants to expand it, but he's clearly looking at it. I mean, do you think the governor in the conservative world is on an island here, or is this more of a divide issue in the party?
No, it's definitely a divisive issue within the party and within conservative ranks in general. I think it's, he's probably seen, Governor Kasich from Ohio and Mike Pence. And Mike Pence sort of did what people call the poison pill thing, where he asked for a waiver from the federal government to expand Medicaid, but put on all these stipulations in the waiver that he wasn't sure that the Obama administration would ever bite on it. The governor's going to have to figure out what he wants to do with Medicaid. I think reform's definitely going to be the major part of the debate. I doubt expansion is going to happen. I will say that I think that certificate of need reform is going to have to be an integral part to any Medicaid reform that happens in North Carolina.
That's basically the permits to get more or less beds, right?
Yeah, or surgical centers, or basically any medical office at all.
If McCrory doesn't do this, though, if he cannot pull this off, I don't see how what he campaigns on in 2016. He will have been effectively just a rubber stamp for the General Assembly, or something that they just ran over for 4 years. He's got to identify an issue where he stakes out turf and accomplishes something and convinces the legislature to do something that he wants them to do. This is the most obvious one to pick, and so I think it's really going to be difficult for him if he can't move any progress on this issue.
I think he's going to try to make transportation, but we'll see. That's just my guess.
Well, I think that it's easy for the governor to run on historic tax reform and simplifying and lowering tax rates for every North Carolina taxpayer.
Well, we could differ on whether we really did that. What we are seeing in North Carolina right now is that the top 1% are paying basically about half as much as the people at the bottom in state and local taxes combined when you look at it as a percentage of their income, and that's only gotten worse under the governor. So if that's the kind of historic tax reform he wants to run on, I think he's going to have a tough time.
All right, so one issue before we go here, we don't have a lot of time left, and actually you guys will agree on this issue, incentives. You both want to get rid of them, but how can we, without those, can we really recruit jobs the way we need to if we just dump them tomorrow?
I think you've obviously going to probably have to retain some targeted incentives in some circumstances, but this whole idea of walking around money and giving away cash to corporations to come to locate to North Carolina, I think we're agreed on that. But
Absolutely.
The best investment is to invest in our people, to invest in the education, the infrastructure. That's what draws people to the state, quality of living. It's not giving away cash or even tax rates. It's making this a good place to live. That's what they ought to be.
And you agree with that too. It's just how we fund those that the disagreement comes.
Right. There's a story about Toyota moving their North American headquarters, deciding between Dallas and Charlotte, and the incentives package that North Carolina put out was $100 million. Texas was $40 million. And then Secretary Decker said that, well, we had to have a much larger package because they don't have a corporate income tax, they don't have a personal income tax rate. And it seems to me that the Commerce Secretary and the Governor should come out and try to fight for more tax reform so that we can not have to spend so much money on corporate incentives.
But do you think, our Pope on the show last night said it's too soon to make major changes again. You think we can just move forward?
No, I don't think that this year is the year that we do major changes where we lower rates and all that. I think this is the year where we try to do tax reform and actually try to close out some loopholes, and that way in the future we can move toward more lowering of the rates and broadening the base.
Maybe there's some common ground. that is an area we agree on. I think we could
have our own kumbaya moment here in Capitol.
We could raise a little more money by closing some loopholes for sure.
All right, guys, good to see you. Thank you so much. Should be an interesting session ahead.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you. Appreciate it.